And I've been afraid to talk about this for the longest time, so... Hello beautiful humans, my name is RidersDX and I have a problem with Crash Bandicoot. But tonight on Late Night Riders, we're going to be diving into the orange marsupial whose iconic expression has forever stirred the entire spectrum of human emotions within me. It all started with a memorable purchase that I made in November of 2018. The N Sane Trilogy for the Nintendo Switch. Ever since I played Twinsanity, there was a genuine interest I had in playing the original games. There just wasn't really a feasible way of playing them. Until now, that is. It was also comforting to know that most people had very good things to say about the collection. I really loved the N Sane Trilogy. I couldn't imagine a game that would make me feel like a little kid again and quite like this game, and I loved every single second of it. What can I say really? It's a fun collection of the first 3 games remade in glorious high definition graphics. If it wasn't for the N Sane Trilogy, there would be no Reignited Trilogy. Crash 1 is the most improved overall and I adore what they did with it. Villain designs were also great, Dingo Dow and Entropy stand out in particular. Art style is, in hindsight, appropriate but a little odd. Furkay, am I right? Overall, a perfect first step to a full-scale comeback. Crash Bandicoot N Sane Trilogy is an amazing game and is the best way to experience these classics. It is truly a great introduction to younger generations as well as those who never got to experience the masterpiece that is the original trilogy. N Sane Trilogy along the Reignited Trilogy both show that not only were these legendary franchises still popular, but also profitable, ensuring a bright future for both. Despite some personal dislikes like the physics, level, rounded geometry, and the art style to a certain degree, I found the N Sane Trilogy to be an amazing comeback and a perfect way for newer generations and older generations that missed it in their time to get to know the franchise. So to advance the story, there's a lot of ways that I play video games, sure, but you can kind of break it down into 2 separate ways. The first way, I love the game and I can't do anything else but play that game until I finish the campaign. The most recent example I could think of is Paper Mario the Origami King, where I might as well have gotten transferred into the game and gotten an intense surgical plastic procedure that would have turned me into Olivia because my friends thought I was dead for a week. But the other, I drag a game out for months or even years because A, I either don't have that much interest and can't continue it, or B, the game's just too difficult for whatever reason and I can't figure out how to get past a certain point. And I hate to say it, but the N Sane Trilogy kind of fell into that second category because I didn't actually finish it until this past August. And I was just really confused about how I felt about these games for a long time. Did I simply not enjoy them? Were they too difficult for my infantile gaming hands? Was I racist against the color orange? But I think upon finishing the trilogy, I have a very good idea about how I feel about these games. And I've been afraid to talk about this for the longest time, so... here goes. First off, I just want to say I understand and respect what these games have done for the franchise. I mean, a remake doesn't just sell 10 million copies out of the blue. It earned that reputation and it earned that success. But for a long time, I really had to push myself to get through the N Sane Trilogy due to a multitude of reasons. I remember that once I would get past a level or 2, I just wanted to stop and I wouldn't pick up the game until like maybe a week or 2 later or even a month at some points. Playing Crash Bandicoot games in general for the first time is such a love and hate relationship just because of the inevitable amount of trial and error you're gonna have to do to get through all these levels. Crash Bandicoot is very well known for the kind of platforming that requires quite particular precision that not everyone is going to get on the first try. And there were some points where I was playing every single level and I was getting a game over for each level because I was just sucking that bad at the game. When you feel like a loser every time you boot up a game, for some people that's extremely motivating and it pushes them to keep playing until they finally conquer that level, but for others it's really demotivating and it makes it a lot harder to get into the game. Okay, so I'm aware I sound like a whining baby. Go ahead and flame me all you want in the comment section below right now, get it out of your system, and then actually listen to what I have to say. I hate how people just assume people that don't like difficult games are whining babies. Yes, I prefer playing games where I can just simply jump into them and have a good time. I recently returned to work full-time this past week and my head feels like a volcano. So excuse me if concussion-causative games aren't my first choice to go to. Games are no longer for one specific kind of player, and previous years have definitely shown that. I mean, just look at the Nintendo Wii and how it basically drew in this entire crowd of casual gamers, or look at mobile gaming and seeing how that has completely blown up and arguably has been more successful than console gaming. People that hate on people that don't like difficult games are, I'm sorry, pretentious, because it's all about a matter of taste. And this just happens to be mine, and it's no better or worse than yours. But with so many different kinds of gamers that are looking for different things in their video games, how can game developers account for all of this? Well, it's pretty simple, and it all comes down to one word: accessibility. I'm talking about things like difficulty settings, different campaigns for different people, optional tutorials, just things that help newcomers get a little bit more acclimated into these video games. And so many games coming out nowadays have these features almost as a default. Games have really evolved to the point where options are infinitely a great thing to have, and it's become much more common and standard to make games more accessible to a wider variety of players. And this is where I feel the original games have ultimately aged. You need to be pretty dedicated to get good enough at these games that you can get through all the levels with relative ease. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, it's just that I feel like it makes Crash Bandicoot a much more acquired taste than it has to be. But once I had finished the trilogy, I had a stark realization that made this point so much clearer in my head. Once I got through each game, I actually followed it with a second playthrough because I needed that second playthrough to record footage because I didn't want to waste space on my hard drive at 50 minutes of me dying at the same spot in the same levels. But upon my second playthroughs in all the games, I finally got what makes Crash Bandicoot so appealing, an appeal that I don't even think I realized while playing Twinsanity. Suddenly, I was no longer dying repeatedly. I was actually navigating most of these levels with relative ease, all the way down to the final bosses. And it was such a rewarding feeling because it showed by dedicating time and adapting your skills to the challenges that the game gave you, you can improve yourself and become a better gamer. And it was a really fulfilling thing and showed me the value of having difficulty in your games. And I'm really upset it took me 2 years to finally have this realization about these games and actually become a genuine fan of them. So now my question is, how can future developers of Crash Bandicoot games help players get to this point faster? Well, we need to look no further actually than Crash 4, It's About Time. There's a really awesome feature this game is offering, which is allowing players to play this game in 2 modes, Retro and Modern mode. Retro mode is basically just like the PS1 games with a live system and game overs. However, Modern mode will feature regular automatic checkpoints and remove the live system. To kind of balance things out a little bit more, you will be required to collect a certain amount of Wumpa Fruit for each level. This is really great in my opinion because not only are you giving those older fans the experience that they crave, but you're also allowing newcomers to get into the franchise and make Crash Bandicoot just that more widespread in terms of his appeal. And I think it's so smart, and I'm so glad to see developers like Toys for Bob finally adapt Crash Bandicoot in this way. Video games have evolved so much in the past few decades, for better and for worse. I mean, in the early 90s, you didn't even have save slots for most of your games. Imagine playing some of today's games in one go. It just wouldn't be possible. The reality is everyone plays games differently, and it's become much more of a standard to accommodate for that. Some people like to play games casually, some people like to play games to beat the high scores, some people like to speedrun games, some people like to mod games, Everyone has a different way of approaching these games, and it's become much more important to account for all that. And solutions like what Crash 4 is doing are, wow, simple, extremely effective. I think my personal way of playing games is I like to start at an easier difficulty and just kind of take in the narrative at my own pace, but afterwards I am much more encouraged to go ahead and try the game at a harder difficulty because I would have already completed the game and I would be looking for a challenge. It's something that for me drives me to replay games. Accessibility is such an important thing now in video games, and I don't feel like the original trilogy did a good job at that. But that's okay because the original trilogy is a product of its time. In the 90s, people didn't make games like this, and people were okay with playing games in this way. But now, games have changed, and in my opinion, for the better. While there's a lot more crutches and a lot more ways to make the experiences easier, I feel like there's also a push to make sure that more kinds of people can play these video games. And isn't that what video game communities are about? Just making sure that everyone is able to enjoy the games that you enjoy? I mean, for me, I think that's pretty cool, and I feel like Crash 4 is on an amazing path to appeal to every kind of gamer, and I'm so excited for it to come out, I think this week actually, and really dive into it. Before I conclude this video, I do want to touch a little bit upon the N Sane Trilogy since, I kind of have been dancing around the game itself this entire video, so I'll just say this. Do not start with Crash 1. Don't start with Crash 1. I know it goes against the way that things are supposed to go. I'm a very anal person when it comes to going through things in order, but I really completely regret starting with Crash 1 because it is by far the weakest game of the 3 games. I really do think the reason that I took so long to finish this game was because I started with Crash 1 and I just wasn't having that much fun because there was just so much to figure out with Crash Bandicoot that the first one didn't do. And that's okay because it's the first game, so you're definitely going going to be trying a bunch of things and trying to see what works best and what doesn't work, but I feel like Crash 1 just really pales in comparison to 2 and 3. Crash Bandicoot Cortex Strikes Back basically improves upon Crash 1 in every shape or form. Better levels, better presentation, an actual storyline to kind of guide you through the adventure. It was just a really fun time. Crash Warped was a little bit interesting for me because it kind of took what Crash 2 did, but at the same time it added a whole bunch of different things in terms of gameplay, you know, different kinds of levels, different kinds of vehicles and such, and I'm still kind of confused as to how I overall feel about it because while I think they did a really solid job at creating more Crash Bandicoot levels, I really don't think it was necessary to have so much diversity in the game, as I really think it diluted the experience in a way and just made it a really odd title in the franchise. I still think it's a lot better than the first game, don't get me wrong, but I think Crash Warped is a bit of an interesting title to say the least. But like I said, to me, the strength of all of these games is being able to go back to them and realize that you've gotten so much better than before at these games, and it's just so rewarding. It's a great thing, and I'm definitely looking forward to having that same feeling with Crash 4. It's about time. And so yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say. So let me know in the comment section below what you think about this video. Did you have a similar experience as to me when you first played the Crash Trilogy? I would love to hear stories about how you first got into these games, how you felt about them back when you first played them, and how you feel about them now. And also let me know if you're excited for Crash 4. It's about time. What's the most exciting thing that you're looking forward to with the game? I'd love to know. And just yeah, thank you so much. I hope I made sense. This video is kind of a weird hybrid between Crash Bandicoot, but also my overall opinions on how video games should be made. So I hope you all liked it. But before we leave off, I do want to point out another huge problem that I have with Crash Bandicoot. And this is a big one. This is something that I'm so shocked that so many people haven't talked about yet. But I want to know why Crash Man has not gotten his own spin-off title yet. It's a crime, an absolute crime. Thank you so much for watching this video. Special shout out to the Nerd Corner, Killer Lemurs, Team Ride with Sonic Gamer, Cheryl Rainfall, Johnny Hinton Ortiz, Trash Q, Abraham Muter, and Mass Muter. These are my patrons / YouTube members. If you'd like to become a patron or YouTube member and get access to a whole bunch of different perks, then please check out the links in the description box below. But alright, this is Riders, riding out.